Back at the Andersons' house, I was anxiously awaiting DNA results when a sleek pink sports car pulled up to the mansion. The very Ferrari Cherry had wanted, the I had refused. Justin had just bought the same car that I had refused Cherry. Why would Justin so openly defy my decision? Was this just about a car? Or was it a deliberate attempt to undermine my authority and buy Cherry's affection? And what would I do now that Justin had gone against my wishes so dramatically? A wave of fury and disbelief washed over me, a primal anger that threatened to consume me. I recognized the car instantly. It was the exact model Cherry had been pestering Justin for, the one I had firmly refused to buy her. He actually bought it, I thought, my hands tightening on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. He defied me. He undermined my authority, and he did it with a gaudy pink monstrosity that screams irresponsible indulgence. I was about to grab my phone and call Justin, my voice already rehearsing the scathing words I would unleash, when a loud, insistent knocking echoed through the house. The jarring sound shattered the tense silence, reverberating through the usually tranquil atmosphere. Everyone inside froze, their heads snapping towards the source of the noise. The knocking was urgent, almost aggressive, each blow shaking the heavy oak door. I suppressed a sigh, forcing myself to set aside my immediate anger and deal with the intrusion. Melissa, her expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension, rose from her seat. "I'll get it," she offered, her voice slightly hesitant. She walked towards the door with a hesitant gait, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for the handle. Melissa went to the door. She asked, "Can you please tell me your name?" A loud voice immediately came from outside. "I'm Nora's father." A wave of shock rippled through the living room. All eyes turned to me, their expressions a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Simon and Melissa were particularly taken aback. The voice that had just roared through the door was so harsh and demanding. Could it really be my father? They wondered. I raised an eyebrow, a sigh of resignation forming in my chest. Before I could interject and say that opening the door wasn't necessary, a figure rushed past the maid and threw the door wide open. It was Henry. He stood on the porch, his face red with a manufactured outrage. "Why did you wait so long to open the door?" he bellowed. "Are you trying to insult me? You might as well just say I'm not welcome here." Melissa stepped aside, her eyes wide with alarm. Wendy, my stepmother, hovered nervously behind Henry. Henry strode into the house, his gaze sweeping across the room. He was about to enter the living room when I stepped forward, blocking his path. His brow furrowed. "What is the meaning of this, Nora? Why are you preventing us from entering?" I stood my ground, my voice low and firm, laced with a warning edge. "If you have something to say, then say it here. I don't want to drag the Andersons into this." I had no desire to subject the Andersons to the unpleasantness of my family drama. Henry scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is this how the Andersons treat their guests? Do they actually stop family members from crossing their threshold?" I retorted, my gaze unwavering. "Do you even qualify as family anymore?" Henry's face flushed with anger. He raised his voice, ensuring everyone in the living room could hear his performance. "I'm Mrs. Anderson's son-in-law. I haven't seen any of my in-laws since your mother and I married. But I've heard now that my mother-in-law is still alive and kicking, so I think I should pay her a visit. Right, Mom?" He tried to squeeze past me, his shoulder bumping against mine. But I stood firm, my body rigid, my feet planted on the floor. Henry, his face contorted with effort, tried to shove me aside, but I remained unyielding. Despite my slender frame, I was surprisingly strong, an immovable obstacle he couldn't budge. It was as if my feet were rooted to the spot, my resolve as solid as a statue. Henry's fury reached a boiling point. He narrowed his eyes, his gaze menacing, but I didn't flinch. I held his gaze, my expression unwavering. Suddenly he abandoned his attempts to physically move me and instead bellowed into the room, his voice echoing through the house. "Mom, your son-in-law is here to visit you." Mrs. Anderson, who could no longer ignore the commotion, rose from her seat and walked out of her room, her steps slow and deliberate. She had been thinking of her daughter Yvette, who had given up the brilliant and charming Ian Smith and ran away from home to marry Henry. Even though Mrs. Anderson had never directly questioned Yvette's choice, she had always harbored a deep curiosity about the man her daughter had chosen. The elderly lady opened the door, her eyes searching Henry's face, "Nora, let them come in and talk," she said, her voice firm but weary. I stood there shocked. Why did Henry visit us suddenly? And why did my grandma allow him inside? What drama awaits us as Henry comes back into my life?